Hello and welcome back to another episode of Let's Drone Out. Tonight you are joined by the man with moustache, Stephen.
Good evening. Hello, everyone.
Our Lord and Master, Andrew/Frank.
Hello.
And I'm Brian Till I Fly. Hello. Let's
You
start
didn't
the
sound
show.
very sure. It sounded like you had to question who you were.
Energy level. I like the way we
Who am I again?
That pre-show workup that we do, we're all just like shouting and jumping up and down to reach this energy level. I don't know if 5 viewers can tell, but keep pushing it.
I thought maybe Jack was wondering which show this was, because you've got another show on this evening
welcome
that you're
to
recording
Thursday
as well.
night. It's late and we're going to be playing some electronica.
Not 80s music. I thought Jack usually does 80s music.
Electronica is 80s.
He's 80. Yeah. Yeah.
That was my attempt at late night radio disc voice. Shan't do it again. Sorry.
I've left my normal glasses downstairs, so at some point I will.
Oh my god! Yeah, it looks like you should in fact adopt a DJ persona when you put those on. It should be like a different voice and set of mannerisms that goes with those glasses.
Yeah.
So flying.
Yes.
Flying.
You done any flying?
No.
I've done a bit of flying. I've been flying around the country. I've been places and done things. Summer has started, people. Things are happening. The weather is permitting it.
I know. Me and Stephen have got our fingers up our butts.
Stephen's there saying, "Speak for yourself."
Been exercising and tinkering with PCs mainly, so not so much flying, right? But lots of tinkering.
Is that what the hard drive's about?
Yeah. I bought a bunch of hard drives thinking, oh, what a deal. Someone's offloading all these old hard drives. Oh, I'll grab a couple. I need to not realize that the cheap little Synology I was going to put them in only accepts hard drives that have 512-byte sectors or 512-byte emulated sectors. And I didn't see these because they have 4K, 4096-byte sectors. And so I just put them somewhere else, which is quite irritating.
I deal with this sort of thing in my day job, and I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm tuning out.
Moving on.
Yeah, I can see in the chat. I can see Caroline and Stubbsy, who I saw at the weekend, but they may not be expecting me to show this picture, which is where I started my week last week. I went up to BMFA Buckminster last Wednesday and was there until Friday afternoon for an FPV fixed wing meet, particularly with a load of scale models and head tracking models, but with a load of FPV in them.
Is that one of Andy's creations?
This is not one of Andy's creations. I think this might be... Who would this be? I think this might be Neil's, who probably won't know. But
for our audio listeners, we're looking at a FPV Spitfire by the looks of it.
Indeed.
Five-bladed prop and a big old nose cone.
Yeah. Don't.
DJI.
Let's not go too far into our Spitfire recognition. I think I'm going to put my reputation on the line. I think the 5 blades
Spitfire
means it's a Griffin engine, which means it's like a Mark 14, something like that.
They got like progressively longer, didn't they?
Caroline's saying Mark 22. Yeah, I mean, it's a later Mark. Put it that way. I can't see the wingtips. We'll move on from the question of which particular mark of Spitfire this bit of foam is pretending to be. But it's got a DJI camera and DJI Air unit in it.
Which is not historically accurate.
Yeah, I don't think the foam's historically accurate either. I mean, personally, I think that the construction of this is all wrong, really, for a Spitfire. If you're going to go scale, surely it should be with the same construction materials. that should be a miniature Rolls-Royce engine in there.
Where did China stand in 1942?
Not very much involved in the creation of Spitfires.
Not involved in the creation of Spitfires, I'll grant you that. They were heavily involved in the Second World War. Arguably, the Second World War started with China, depending on which historian you talk to. So, very much involved. But
History with Frank.
They suffered some horrible massacres that don't really get talked about. Aren't really known outside of China.
Yeah.
Back to the pumping up of the show.
Yeah,
let's get those energy levels right up there.
Talking about the war.
Yeah, just don't mention the war.
I made the mistake of listening to lots of war podcasts a while back. Al Murray does an interesting one.
We have ways of making you talk.
Yeah, it's got
very
like 500
good
episodes. 500. It's more than us.
I very much enjoy that one.
Yeah.
Yes, but anyway, so I was at BMFA Buckminster, and this is why I wasn't on the show, was because there was less than 1 meg up last week from BMFA Buckminster. Even though they've got shiny new Wi-Fi everywhere, out onto the fields, like they've put in a load of effort, but it was struggling. Just as my internet is currently struggling here. So if you lose me, that'll be why. Because apparently the UK can't do internet. But yeah, so it was an FPV scale meet. So this was from the Channel 4 Battle of Britain Model Squadron for back 6 years ago. We've had the kind of 2 or 3 meetups every year. But this year, because we've got a couple of other things going, and the May is always the one with the kind of not great weather, so it's the one that people generally miss out. So to make up the numbers, John Lancaster, who runs these meetups, decided what we should do is we should open the doors to anyone with some head tracking or scale FPV, and sort of broaden our horizons and invite some other people along. So that was what was going on. So yeah, it was good fun to see different things. So these are the sort of things that John Lancaster does. So this is his Mosquito, and so you can see there's an FPV on a pan tilt. There's an FPV camera on pan tilt there, hidden away next to a co-pilot with a literal scale map, and he makes all this stuff from scratch himself to an absurd level of detail and accuracy. John Lancaster's cockpits are just amazing.
The placement of the camera there is quite interesting because it's actually far enough you'd be able to move the camera inside the cockpit, far enough back, not press right against the front.
It's in the kind of the position that the pilot's head would be in, and you can look around and see the co-pilot and see the co-pilot's map and all the dials and things. It's
working dials?
Not working dials, but they're very, very detailed. I think that's something sort of that will happen later on. So this is Desert Spitfire. So you can see he's got like a fan on his air unit. You can see he's got like a gun sight there, which is a proper collimating gun sight. So it sort of projects a virtual target out into the distance. Yeah, but the one that I bought, which maybe I might have a picture of somewhere. Is just literally like a Pepper's Ghost. It just shows a dot that sort of appears in the cockpit. But a collimating one does some funny magic to make it appear like it's way out in front of the nose somewhere. It's very clever. But
is that just a pan, or does it?
I think it is a pan tilt. I think all John's ones are pan tilt. I could be wrong.
Looks like he's done some magic to really make the camera casing smaller as well.
Oh yeah, he's
small camera.
He's spent so much effort on making all this stuff.
That would restrict the movement inside the cockpit if you've got a big chunky camera with the lens sticking out. That's a surprisingly low profile camera for like DJI.
Yeah. And all the mechanisms as well that you all custom make just to get them like just right. It is baffling if you see one of these in person and realize just how small all these details are and how much effort he puts into these. It's amazing.
Does
And
he
then
have any footage people could look at to see what it looks like?
Yeah.
That would be.
If you wanna see this, if you go to YouTube and go to Robo Biggles, that is his channel, and he doesn't post that frequently, but when he does, it's always good stuff. So definitely watch out for the Mosquito on there. There's Thunderbolt. There's P47 Thunderbolt. That is a beautiful cockpit in FPV. But yeah, so he's just some lovely scale models with a load of FPV. At the other end of the spectrum, I would say, we had a couple of guys over who we've had on the show before from FPV Combat. And so they brought their models along, which they've scratch built out of like insulation foam and brightly colored packing tape. And so they don't look as nice to look at on the ground. They look a bit tapey.
But when they're darting around.
But in the sky, they look great, and they still have wonderfully detailed tiny little cockpits.
Ooh, very
you
nice.
can see here, this is like, you know, there's dials with like markings on, and the dial is like a quarter of the size of your fingernail, and it's lovely stuff. And when you're in the FPV and you just have these kind of details slightly out of focus, and it's a great experience. It's a lot of fun.
Could I share a video of Robo Biggles for a second, because he has some footage
Absolutely.
in that Spitfire that
Absolutely.
you're looking at there. So if I just share this, it's probably going to turn into absolute
Say
rubbish.
what you see.
We've got the interior cockpit of this Spitfire. Oh, now it's him taking off. So he's flying the foam Spitfire that we looked at, put the retracts up, and I thought I had a bit of footage of him actually. Here we are. He's in the cockpit looking out over the wing, doing a turn over to the left. And you can see that there's a ton of cockpit detail. He's actually got a surprising amount of visibility. Can look right back to the limits of the headrest behind him with that camera, which is pretty impressive considering there's a cockpit around it.
And he's posted out some photos somewhere as well, or some screenshots where you can see the rear view mirror at the top of the cockpit.
You can actually
there.
see the sights in front as well, just showing up there that you were mentioning.
Yeah, that's his collimating. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the rear view mirror, he's got a fantastic screenshot of like a 109, a Luftwaffe aircraft in the rear view mirror of the Spitfire. And it's like, whoa, that is cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, terribly impressive. It's taken a lot of work. Being able to see it so it looks like just like a real plane as well, because once you get up to HD, it's, you know, you're getting all of the details inside the cockpit. It's not just a blurry mess. You can really see the ground detail. Yeah.
Could you imagine showing this to a veteran and like, you don't think it's really cool, or you know?
I don't know. Maybe
really
depends if they want to talk about it or not to start with, I guess. Can't take things for granted.
Would they be having flashbacks of like, I remember the Luftwaffe and the Mirror of Doom?
Yeah. My grandfather worked as a medic, and he never really expressed an urge to talk about any of it.
No. Many don't, or didn't. But yeah, John's models are the pinnacle of scale FPV as far as I'm concerned. They are.
I mean,
fantastic.
he's even painted the rivets, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah, like
on the
there's.
inside.
And he he's been around the museums. He's got like all the reference images that he's taken. He's managed to talk his way into sitting in a Spitfire at the Battle of Britain Memorial flight, so the RAF Spitfire, and sort of have the real experience of like what it's actually feeling like, and sort of where your head ends up, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a lot of attention to detail. They're very nice.
Incredible.
Yeah. Thank you, Robo Biggles. Check out that channel on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah. So we had these Germans over with the, again, nice scale cockpits, with a slightly less scale aircraft, but still very nice cockpits and animated hands and things. He's got like one where it waves and like you can see the joystick moving around and stuff. Again, very cool. But their big thing, which is what they came on the show before a couple of years ago, is the FPV combat system. So that's using infrared, like laser tag. So like transmitter guns and receiver infrared receivers to be able to shoot each other down effectively and score points and things. And they've got these sort of elaborate games that go along with that as well. And it used to be that they had, I think, sort of when they were on the show, to be able to do HD stuff with their system, they kind of had some LEDs that would light up in the cockpit. But now they've actually integrated that through FPV, what is it called? WTFOS or whatever it is. They've actually integrated it into DJI FPV once it's slightly hacked, and so you can have an actual OSD displaying the game state on there, which is all exciting stuff. So it does end up with quite a lot of cables and boards and things when you've got a flight controller and a receiver and the VTX, and you've got the combat stuff as well. So you end up with a bit of a rat's nest of wires going everywhere. But you know they do a fair job of attempting to tidy this up with lots of cable ties and like cable braiding and stuff. There's a lot of cables. There's a lot of wires, but it works, and they combat them. So inevitably there is quite a lot of crashing and gluing back together. But yeah, that's all good fun. This is my one. This is that I bought from them while they were over. So that's my gun sight to put on something at some point. But I don't know what I'm going to put that on. Probably end up on my Cub because that's what I've got.
Any FPV combat happening on the day?
I think they sort of did a couple of demos, but basically with only the two of them, we were all kind of more interested in just flying together. But yeah, I mean, the Wednesday and the Thursday was fairly grim, so it was mainly building stuff. So we were using one of the hangars at BMFA Buckminster and just building stuff. So Leon here was setting up this 109 and basically spent the entire time setting this up. So we were all sort of getting involved a bit, and it's a very welcoming crowd. Everyone's there to come in, lend a hand and help me carry on. Here's Andy Simmons from BMFA, so all the kind of local regulars were all intrigued at all the FPV stuff, and there was more positive vibes than you might expect. Because it was so wet, we did end up messing around with some other things as well. So we've had like some whoops around in the hangar before. This time Sharon brought her shark, helium shark, which was passing the transmitter around. We were all having a go at the shark, which literally swims around, like the tail wags back and forth. And
it's just a helium balloon then?
Yeah, it's just a helium balloon with like a couple of servos on it. It was good fun. Kept us entertained for a bit. Yeah. Dragging cables all over the nice scale models. And then Andy turned up and brought along his Typhoon that he was hoping to maiden at Buckminster with a nice, really long grass runway with a nice NOTAM around it with no one else coming around.
There's a butt heading towards that conversation, I sense.
But it just didn't stop raining for long enough from further go. So it was pootling around the hangar on the nice concrete floors and being very photogenic. and we had a go at setting up all the control surfaces and making sure all the throws were all right and sort of double checking a lot of things. But Phil came along as well, so Andy and Phil do their scale FPV in the Red Arrows Hawks, so they brought them along as well. Yeah, so here's Andy's Typhoon with the air brake coming out, and it's got the lovely afterburner effects and little vents that open and stuff. It's a very, very nice model. That again, he's got the pan tilt DJI system on it. So it's a shame that we didn't get to see that. I would love to have seen that fly. I look forward to. I imagine at some point Andy will post out a video of that, because it was very impressive. But they brought along the Hawks as well. Andy's one has him in the back of it, a little mini me that he got at Western Park. This must be Phil's. But yeah, that was good to see as well. Sort of how they've set up their pan tilt system for their head tracking. So it got so wet there that the Germans were getting a bit of cabin fever, and decided that if they weren't going to be able to fly their fixed wing stuff for a while, they would at least attempt to pretend they had. So they were dragging each other around in one of these trolleys with the FPV system on their head and just holding the plane round and just flying it through the hangar to get some video. So yeah, that was how wet and cold and windy and wintry.
So people weren't attempting to fly inside the hangar then? It wasn't quite that large of a hangar?
No, it's not quite that level. Not for the sort of size models that we have. We have flown some fixed wing stuff inside before, but only small 3D stuff. Yeah, so we're having a bit of a laugh. We did go out and fly. His Phil flying his glider just to prove that we're not scared of the wet. It's just we don't like getting it on the lenses of our cameras. So
it's a bit annoying, especially with the amount of time it takes to, I guess, repair one of these.
Yeah, so I did practice my line of sight flying with my cub. That was my main thing while it was raining. While we have the opportunity, and Martin was there making pizzas with James, so we had some wood-fired pizzas on site as well. All good fun. But on the Friday, the weather improved, which is good, so we could actually go out and fly some FPV stuff. Did some streamer chasing and just some like formation flying. So we've got like the Mustang and a couple of, I can't remember what they're called. But they're basically scratch-built models that aren't really scale of anything in particular, I don't think. But they fly well. Just flying them all FPV, all in formation, just bombing around the field. It's all good fun. And yeah, so that was all good. So even the kind of line of sight stuff ends up getting quite silly at times. So Steve has his giant glider tug, so it can pull like really, really big gliders up to height. This big bright yellow thing. And Martin had this very knackered trainer. I can't remember what foamy trainer it was. Probably a max thrust Riot, I think. And they ended up doing like basically trying to pull that little trainer apart with the big tug, and got very close to it. I think I jumped at one point because he kind of crashed it where I was standing. But again, all fun. And then we sort of occasionally, sort of every other hour or something like that, we'd try and get as many aircraft flying together as we could. So here's a bunch of us flying FPV, and just absolutely filling the skies with lots of little angry buzzing things. Yeah, So that was basically my time with the scale and fixed wing head tracking meetup at BMFA Buckminster, which is good fun.
Time was had by all.
Yeah. So you'd have thought that would be enough for 1 week, but I drove straight from Buckminster up in Grantham to South Wales, where the weather was bloody lovely. Like you imagine Wales to just be miserable and grey all the time. We had like blue skies, just like amazing. We got sunburnt and hot, very unexpected. So this was the wing racing. So the Wing Racing League, organised by Brady and Matt. So using the FPV flying wings. So this is just 2 control surfaces, the elevons and a motor. And there's a kind of a spec. They're not very strict on the spec at the moment. Basically up to 40-inch wingspan, I think it is. And up to like 4S, and
that's to be a pressure, right? Just for everyone's general safety.
Yeah, but it's not very strict on it. So in the US, where it's been going a bit longer and a bit more people involved, they've got a much more strict spec because they're trying to make it more about let's actually sort of do very competitive racing. But the UK. So Wing Racing League UK is not quite at that level yet where there's enough people involved enough of the time. Everyone's still kind of getting into it. There's not that much availability of the spec components like the motors and like in the US they have a particular motor and a particular ESC and a particular prop and a particular airframe, and in the UK it's quite hard to get any of that. And any one motor seems to be hard to get hold of. So they've just kind of kept it fairly loose in what you can fly. But Brady's been doing the race timing and with streaming as well, using Starlink and stuff. So if anyone caught it over the weekend, you can thank Brady for that. And there you go. This is rack of various bits of componentry that he was using to stream everything and provide some music and screens for spectators and all sorts. So that was
big battery backup at the top.
Oh yes, I think there's another one at the bottom actually. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Loads of those NRAC APCs.
Yeah,
they're very popular.
Yeah, and they had a very big generator. And then Matt was running around, keeping all the flags up, getting the gates going. So we've got these 2 big inflatable gates that have run off the Jennies as well. So Matt was doing a great job of doing that and wrangling the pilots and all sorts.
It's very strange to see first-person view, and they don't even exist anymore.
Yeah. So on that flag. So I think this was one from the mini air show, if I'm not mistaken.
A few more races. Those flags don't last forever.
Well, these have been kicking around for quite a while. Turns out wings don't chew up flags as much as quads do.
Yeah. Less pointy bits.
Yeah, the pointy bits are at the back. They tend not to catch things so much. But we were hosted by the South Wales Valley Flyers Club, which did a grand job of hosting us. They're very, very welcoming, very friendly, very interested in FPV and all sorts of things that had sort of questions. They fed us. They did a load of barbecue, did a load of teas and coffees. Great people. Very welcoming. And then in the times where we had some downtime, because either Brady was having to sort out stuff with the timing system, or maybe we're like going around to a tree and fishing something out of a tree, and the club that's would usually be making good use of a field on a sunny weekend. We sort of made time for them as well to still get out and fly.
You had quite a crowd then. You had the local club there, and so you were, getting all these pilots. How many pilots do you reckon attended?
It must have been. I mean, there wasn't a huge number of us. There was like 13, 14 of us, I think. Plus the local club, which had been another, I guess, another 10, 12 or so people. And sort of friends and family popped along as well. So, it's a small event, but it was lively. It never felt quiet. Caroline here was demonstrating to the club chairman her Nano Goblin and the O3 system. I think that she's got a Nano Goblin. So he's having a go with the goggles. Some people took camping very seriously because a lot of us were camping there. I mean, I was just in the back of my car, but a couple of the guys, I think this was their first race, popped along and brought a.
That's a proper tent. Tony should see that. You can.
I know that's
size person in one of those.
Exactly. Like this is like absolutely Tony Central for camping. Like you can imagine him getting on very well there. And we also had some drone racers pop along and spectate the wing racing, which is always nice to see. Sort of a wider FPV community getting involved and seeing these events, and sort of the friends and family coming along as well, and sort of seeing it. Definitely Caroline there, I think, was inspiring quite a few younger people to sort of be interested in it and sort of feel like it's accessible, which is always nice. So sort of the way the event works, sort of begin with, like, you arrive there Saturday morning, making sure everything is still working, plugging everything in, getting everything to bind, doing some like the fail-safe checks. So you plug in, you get it all working, you get the motor running, and then you turn off your radio and make sure that everything turns off. Which is, important, I would say. And then you called up. So basically, because we had enough people for 3 heats, so we had you'd have a heat that you were spotting for. So you launch the plane and you count their laps in case in case they miss a gate, and then the timing system isn't going to know that, so you take a lap off, or maybe the timing system doesn't pick them up, in which case you add a lap on. So you're sort of spotting for them, and then you'd do your race, and then you've got a round to catch up, fix everything, charge everything up, get ready for the next one because you're going to be spotting the next one. So there's sort of the classic thing from the drone racing is when everyone's happy, you get your goggles down, thumbs up, make sure you see all the thumbs up from all the pilots, and then it starts. The difference is that here, because we're not going off the blocks, because you can't just like launch yourself.
Has anyone kind of come up with a bit of wood or something that you could rest a wing on, so you could do a takeoff?
Yeah, the launchers do exist, but they're not as good or not as quick to readjust to the changing wind conditions. Because basically, you want to launch your wing.
There might be some occasions you can't just put the plane down and leave it; it'll blow off.
Well, it's more a case of you want to launch your plane into wind, right? Because when you first take off, you don't have enough.
Does that apply so much when you've got a race wing and it's got like ludicrous power to weight ratio?
If you don't want to just be spinning for the first bit until you've got enough airspeed, then yeah, it still applies.
You need enough fluid over the surfaces.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want to be blown in a particular direction that you're not flying in.
And you don't want to hit a gate or a flag as you're taking off. That would be inconvenient.
Just the judges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'd be launched and sort of fly around a bit, and then the countdown starts for the race. You get your beeps, and basically if you go through the gate, the start gate, on the beep, that's the ideal situation. It's like you want the beep, as you're going through. Otherwise, you're sort of wasting time. With Chris G not being able to make it this weekend, he's like last year. He was absolutely wiping the floor with his bit of glue with some foam attached. But he wasn't able to make it to this event. So John and Nick were very much kind of the two to watch in this scenario. And they were doing, I think they were getting like they got 70 something laps over the course of the weekend. I got like 20 something. So there's a slight difference there. There's some room for improvement. I'll put it that way. It was great fun watching those two kind of battle it out because they're very evenly matched. They got basically the same aircraft, I think. So John cuts a lot of the foam for as prototype RC, the spec wings from there. So they've got basically the same aircraft. They've been practicing a lot and a lot together as well. So they take similar lines and take similar risks, and so they're quite evenly matched. And seeing them battle it out, overtaking each other and really pushing things, it's good fun. We did also have basically everyone there also flies line of sight, also flies quads. So there was all sorts going on, particularly in the evenings. After retrieving all the wings from the trees. Yeah. So Will had a bit of an unfortunate incident here. So he unfortunately flew behind this oak tree, which is one of these sort of like a flag, like an obstacle on the course. So he was sort of round the back of that slightly, just as the rest of us, the three of us all together, basically flew right in front of him. So that was a bit unfortunate because Ivan didn't have video for a fraction of a second, and ended up in the tree, so we had to go retrieve it. And the motor got all tangled up in the branches, but eventually it came down and got glued back together. So smiles all round. So it was a good event, lots of racing, lots of flying, lots of laps in. We did have to battle the wind quite a lot, so it got a bit turbulent with the wind blowing off the trees, and you could get thrown around quite a bit. We learnt, or at least those of us at the back of the pack, learnt eventually that if you move your CG a lot further forward than you're used to, that helps cut through a lot of the wind and keeps you more stable in the turbulence. So you're a bit less agile, but you can actually make it around the track, which is important.
You dampened the control response.
Yeah, and just being more nose heavy, I feel like it's just sort of having to. I don't know what it is, but either way, it doesn't get thrown about by the turbulence as much.
Put more inertia up. The nose is where the camera is, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if you put extra mass around the camera, then it doesn't move as much, right?
Yeah, as the evening sort of drew in, Matt Stubbs got his X Class out and was trying that out, giving it a bit of a shakedown before the X Class and wing racing event at Popham on the 8th and 9th of June. So if anyone's got any X Class or would like to pop along with their wing for that, then go to wrl-uk.com, search Wing Racing League UK, and you can go along to that. Turns out X Class are finicky. Matt was having some issues with that, so hopefully that's all resolved by the time Popham comes around and you can race that. But they are very impressive machines, and the noise is quite scary, let alone the rest of it. We were sort of, carrying on flying into the night, had a load of LEDs out, It's like gathering around a campfire, except instead of a campfire, it's just like wings lit up with LEDs. Entertaining. And yeah, they made for some very pretty pictures. And they've got the LED flags and LED strings along the ground and stuff, so the whole course is lit up. So yeah, it's all good fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need to put LEDs on something. I do not have LEDs on anything. I've got a mud LED board, and I've got a load of LEDs. I just haven't put it on anything that flies. Oh yeah, the hot glue gun. So I think it was James who was one of the new guys, new to the events that I've been to anyway. He brought along hot glue gun, and his mate brought along a solar charged battery pack. This was very, very welcome. Basically, everyone, I think, at some point or another, used this hot glue gun to get back in the air. So
we made a lot of friends.
If you want to make friends at a wing racing event, bring a hot glue gun and a lot of hot glue and a source of energy, because it was much used over the course of the weekend, and the solar panel and battery pack was again intriguing to all the regular club members. Yeah, you can see here as well.
Solar panel was enough to keep on touch of notoriously wasteful things like heating elements. That's impressive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But there was a lot of sunshine, so that probably helped. But yeah, so you know, this being a competitive event, it didn't feel very competitive, to be honest. It felt like sort of hanging out and just having a good time. But it was competitive, and yes, so I believe it was Nick in first place, John in second place, and Phil in third. So this is Phil, who I think got third place, and then John in second place, and Nick in first place. And there was also a slightly bit of a wooden spoon of best crash, which Ian got by absolutely obliterating both his wing and one of the flags. I'm not really sure how he managed to do it, but yeah, there was a big cloud of foam and a flag in pieces. So yeah, he got the prize for best crash of the weekend. But yeah, so that was my week. Yeah, all good fun. What have we got coming up? We've got Western Park. Is I guess the next big one. I mean, there's for wing racing guys. Like I said, there's the wing racing and X-Class racing at Popham on the 8th and 9th of June. From our point of view, on the 15th of June, 15th and 16th of June. I think we're going to be at Western Park on the 15th. At least me and Jack and possibly Tony and possibly anyone else who wants to make use of our enormous Airbnb that we've managed to book. But the wing racing guys have actually got quite a few events lined up. There's one up in Pontefract where Caroline is based. There's the Popham one, and there's a few others that I don't know how definite they are yet. But check out their website and you can find all their events. We did have that question that I mentioned on the Discord of because when we're getting ready to start the races, sort of there's a few occasions where we're sort of stood around waiting for something to happen, and sometimes, quite often, it felt like to me, we were waiting around for someone's wing to connect back to their transmitter, and it was always the ELRS we were waiting on.
Oh yeah.
So
we chatted about this, the rate negotiation, because like Crossfire, FR Sky, all these other systems, they've essentially just got one mode they operate in. Crossfire, you can tell it explicitly to go into a fast mode, but by default, they just have a single speed, right? So it's running at 50 hertz or 100 hertz or 150 hertz, and that's it. ELRS has in excess of 10 different modes that it can go at, from 50 hertz all the way up to 1,000 hertz, with some weird things that are like double send modes. So it sends every update twice in case one of them's lost. So there's a ton of different modes, and the receiver doesn't know which one you selected on the transmitter. So it just cycles through all of them when it starts up until it hits the one that the transmitter's using, which is irritating, albeit very friendly to newbies, because they can't get anything wrong and it'll always connect. It just might take a couple of seconds. If you can't have something like a safety switch, which is what typically do, like on my RC cars and things, I just have an arm switch that's safe. So I link up, make sure I've got telemetry, and then arm when I'm ready to use the car. But if you don't want to set up your radio like that, you can go to the transmitter, and either when you flash it or in the Wi-Fi configuration dialog, instead of getting it to cycle through all of the modes, set it to the one you intend to use, and it'll lock onto that. That's what you want to do. I don't know the exact documentation, but that will allow you to fix the other problem, which is that you should read documentation. So go and find it. It's a very nice, friendly website.
Reading?
And if you can't get through, ask the LRS guys on Discord. There's hundreds of people there. They're not trolls. They're not obnoxious. They're really nice and friendly, and they don't mind answering questions. So go ask.
There we go. The other thing I thought I should point out with the wing racing, I mean, I think there was at least 3 there where, like, foam board flying wings, like cut by hand, made from scratch, so very cheap. It's only got 2 servos, an ESC motor, prop, receiver, and an FPV system. So if you've flown a quad, you can probably get into this very cheaply. Turns out the stakes are very low. It's good fun. So if anyone does want to give it a go, have a go.
Right. I guess with that wing-tastic update, Frank, we're pretty much at the end of the show now. Unless anyone's got anything else they want to drop in.
I've got the beer of the week. I've got Thirsty Ferret. I don't know what you've got.
I was on Saison de Avon from Lost and Grounded, same as last week, and yeah, still delicious. Very nice drop. All gone now, unfortunately. Nothing to show for that. Highly recommended. Yeah, Thirsty Ferret's a favourite of mine as well, from Badger, right?
Yeah. I should also mention something has just popped into my head. Next week, so from the 30th of May to the 2nd of June, is EMF Camp. I will be there, and on the Saturday evening at about 8 o'clock, for 2 hours, I have the use of Stage A, which is a big circus tent, for doing whooping in. So
you're conducting a study into the propagation of radio waves and reception thereof in a highly noisy RF environment.
You joke, but I am also in touch with a guy who's running the Tesla Coil Village about how we can negotiate not
maybe
killing someone.
How about you switch it off and go and have a nice dinner for a couple of hours?
Exactly. So yeah, so I will be there at some point, I imagine on Thursday, wandering around with a few of us. So this is with the London Aerospace Group, who basically got me into drones and FPV in the first place. So we'll be wandering around, one of us with some goggles on, one of us holding a quad, tiny beam, and another one directing us, trying to find out where the noise floor is acceptable.
Is it going to be an everyone fly at once type of deal? Because it's mostly going to be pilots knocking other pilots out of the air if that's what you're doing.
No, we're going to have because it's a big stage. We're going to have 4 seats up on the stage, each with an LED and channel attached to it. And so it's going to be a case of you fly out from your seat and you can fly around the
This being EMF camp, you might be able to synchronize some sort of LED coloring.
Yeah, that's
LEDs
the sort of plan.
quads.
Yeah, I've put it in the notes. Like, if anyone's got LEDs, consider working out how to use them. I don't know much about any of that side of things, so that will probably be.
Whoop FCs, some AIOs are coming with LEDs on them. They're not super common, unfortunately, but unfortunately, I think it's like a 2 to 6 SFC, but there's one that comes with a whole bunch of LEDs festooned around it, not the 1S boards. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. I've just seen Caroline's message in the chat. She would like to point out that she's never done any racing before and she beat me. Yeah. This is true.
Come on now. We're
Natural
all...
talent. Natural talent, Caroline.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
are. Be nice to Frank. Upset him. He's the only reason we've got a
He's
good
the event
podcast.
photographer. He was busy doing other things, clearly.
Unofficial event photographer. Exactly.
Yeah, tonight I'm on the ThursdayNightShow.com. I'm going to be playing some retro, new wave, lost wave music, talking about searching for songs we have no idea where they've come from. So yeah, from like 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. 2 a.m. In fact, sorry, 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. Yeah, so if you head over there, you can listen to me and the time traveling sex robot play some music and talk and squabble.
Nice.
Lovely. Awesome. I've got nothing terribly exciting going on, although I am running another podcast.
Ooh.
But there's not really much overlap. It's more kind of IT focused. So I started doing a podcast called Post Cloud, talking about computing and things. But I'm not sure there's necessarily much overlap. I just thought I'd throw it in the mix.
You should have called it. Is it in yet?
Well, work might not have been so keen to sponsor it. If
is it Dell?
we're walking the line. No, not that bunch of losers. No.
Any views are personal?
Any views are personal and do not represent the show as a whole. But yeah, Dell was difficult to work with, especially towards the end there.
It's a shame. Frank, I've ordered you your birthday present. It's on the way to your office.
Thank you very much.
Just so you know, if you suddenly start getting text messages about a delivery, you know why.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. Western Park.
Thank you, Tailspin, as ever, to everyone out there. Don't be on fire.
Yeah. Do not be on fire. Rule 0. Absolutely.
Do you want to see us out, Stephen?
Thank you, everyone. You've been joined by myself, Stephen, our Lord and Master, Frank.
Bye.
And our fearless leader, Jack.
Oh, no, I'm not in charge. It's Frank.
We'll see you all next week.
Thank the Patreons.
See you next week.